to my channel. So today is not a very exciting video unless you love maths and Excel spreadsheets, then you will be in your element. I'm just going to go through quickly the Excel sheets I've made for my accounts for the flower farm. I'll sort of show what I've made, what they're for, and a quick sort of glance at the formulas that I've used, etc. And then I'll go through my first year flower farm expenses. Well, basically the expenses from then I'll go through the expenses from the last few years for the things that it's taken for me to basically set up the flower farm. I'll explain kind of what those costs are, why I've bought some of the things, and yeah, how much it cost me to get to where I am in my journey. So we'll start by looking at the spreadsheets. So to begin with, I will do a run through of all the Excel sheets that I have made for my accounts, and kind of what they do, a rough sort of look at how I made them and any formulas I've used, etc. And then I'll do a run through of the kind of total expenditure to start up, or I say start up, to get to the stage that I'm at. So first off, we have a sheet that I've called, I've called all of them accounts and then income. So these are kind of my template sheets when I go to do this month's at the end of the month. Instead of accounts income, I'll date that and then call it like whatever date income, or I might date it from like period, like the start of the month to the end of the month, and then income. So this is just like a template name. It's very, very simple. I like to delete any extra rows and any extra columns to keep it nice and clean. I've only got a few here, but when I come to fill it in properly, I'll probably add more rows here. So to start with, on this is just a record of any income, basically. I've got columns to collate all the relevant information. You could have columns as many as you want or as few as you want. So for me, I've got product type, price, any discounts applied, payment type, receipt or invoice number, and that's more for accounting, for when you come to do your taxes. So I used to be self-employed for I think it was 5 years, maybe a bit more, and so I have done quite a few tax returns, and you need to be able to collate all of your receipts and invoices and number them, just in case. You have to have that information to hand if your accounts get chosen to be audited. Then the date, and then customer name / email. So for me, those are the most important things. I want to know what kind of product I've sold, how much I sold it for, if there were any discounts that were used, payment type. That's good information to have, because you can look back and collate data later on to see whether you're taking mostly cash or card payments. That's obviously for tax. And then date, and then the customer name, email. We might not always get this, but I think it's good to have. So down the bottom, I've got tabs. So I've split, rather than just having a generic one for everything, I've split everything out into the categories that I think I'm most likely to sell in. So to start with, online. So I've got some data in here. This is obviously you know, you obviously can't share any sort of personal data because that will be a breach of data, so I'd never do that in a video. So I've just got a generic name 1 and name 2. Wholesale and florists, concession, markets or direct, and subscriptions. Yeah, and that's basically that. So formulas that I've got, very, very simple. So this one is the subtotal income, and that's literally just this information being collected here. Then total discounts applied, again, that's just this information here being collated, and as you can see, it's a very simple formula up here. And then this one is just obviously this minus this equals that. Very, very simple formula as well. So it's just your one cell minus your other cell, and that gives you your total. And that's the same on every tab. And so we move across. I have a very similar layout for my expenses. So same kind of thing, product / service purchased, so that's for me. Cost, how much it cost me, the date, the reason for the purchase, and that's just very generic, my receipt number, and then any refund amount. And refund amount, that's any money that's been refunded back to me. Let's say I've bought something that's faulty, I still want to be able to collate that that expenditure, but I want to obviously know if the money's come back into my account. And again, the same very simple thing, subtotal that I've spent, total amount of refunds received, and then that gives me my total. And the same as the income, I've split it out, the expenditures, into the different categories. So I've got farm expenses, admin expenses, packaging expenses, energy / internet expenses, and miscellaneous expenses. As you can see, there's a lot of data input in here, which we'll come back to later. Then the next few sheets are more for collating data. I'll actually start with this one. So this is probably the more complicated formulas that are happening on these sheets, and this is just for me, this is just some information for myself. So this one is reoccurring expenses. Ignore my spelling mistakes. And this, so I have some, if I go back, I have some hidden sheets, and these hidden sheets are working in the background to collate different information into basically columns. It's not that complicated. This is just copying product types and the costs from all of my different tabs, and then this is just a formula. It is kind of complex, and you would need to kind of take your time to kind of understand the formula or research it, but it's a formula that takes all of this information and puts it into one column. Now I hide these sheets because they are basically doing things in the background. They're not actually providing me any information that I need to be looking at. And this, so then I have another hidden sheet here, and this is basically taking that column that is made on my expenses sheet and it's importing it here. And then what it's doing with this formula is it's telling me if it's something that I've bought as a one-off or paid for as a one-off, or whether it's a repeat payment, if it's something that I've bought more than once or I've paid for more than once. And again, that's working in the background. And so this is the sheet that I'm looking at. And this is basically telling me, it's filtering through and telling me all of my repeat expenditures. Now this is something that is completely personal and up to you. Nobody really has to have this. This is just for me, and I think it's just an important thing to have, so that I can see kind of what things I'm buying most regularly, where sort of repeat payments are coming out. Are they sort of large repayments, smaller repeat payments, things that I'm spending a lot of money on a regular basis, and whether I can maybe drive down costs. Is there any way that I can save money rather than buying lots of things, buying the same thing lots of different times? Can I buy more all at once and find that I can pay less? That's kind of why I'm collating this information, just for me to have the data to see myself. And same here, I haven't got anything. It's basically the exact same formulas, and I'll show you an example. If we come back to here, say I was just to copy this name and put it here. So say I had the same customer who had bought something twice, and this is my background thing, and see it shows up, and that's a repeat customer. Probably have to just, yeah, there we go. And so that does the exact same thing. You don't always have to reset the filters, it's just me, I had the filter set up wrong. But that shows me my repeat customers. So the same as having sort of, the repeat payments, the things that I've bought more than once. This is showing me who is buying more than once. And I think that's probably some of the most important data that you can have, probably more important than the repeat sort of outgoings, because this helps you really with your marketing. Because if you know that you've got a loyal customer base of people who are buying from you on a regular basis, it helps you do things like be able to get your discounts out to the correct people, any loyalty schemes out to the correct people, and really sort of reward customers and keep their interest. So, say you've got a customer who's bought from you 3 times, and you can send out an email and say, oh, thank you for being such a great customer, here is a discount code. And that works on multiple levels, because from a customer point of view, they're more likely to use that discount and purchase again, and plus they're more likely to keep coming back to you because you put yourself forward as the type of business that rewards customer loyalty. So for me, I think this is like really, really important information to be collating. And then I have a sheet, and this is for refunds. So rather than refunds from stuff that I've bought, this is refunds back to people. And it's got its own sheet because I think it's quite important. If you've had to refund people, I think it's not something you want to do. So you need to be able to keep a really good track of what it was, why, and who it was to. For lots of different reasons. If you've got a really picky customer, maybe, who's asking for multiple refunds on different repeat purchases, that could be something to keep an eye out for. Or say you've got a product and you've had multiple different people asking for a refund, you're going to need to go back and look at that product. So that's why I have this, and I have it separate so that I can keep track of this rather than it just being put into a column on one of the other sheets, because I think it deserves a bit more attention than that, because you should never have to be given refunds, really. You don't want to be given refunds. It's not great business practice to have a large amount of refunds, so you're going to need to know why, and that's the best way to collate this information. And then last but not least is my final accounts sheet. So this is where at the end of the year So the other sheets I'll hopefully be adding to on a weekly basis, and then at the end of the year, this is where I'll come and look, and all of that information is going to be automatically collated and calculated for me, so I've got a very quick overview of everything without even having to sit and look back at any of those sheets. So those sheets are more for keeping a record, and then this is where everything's worked out, and it does it all automatically for me. So total income, so that is basically back on my income sheet. It's taking all of these total incomes from each of these subtotals and it's calculating it there. And the exact same for total expenditures, it's taking this total from each tab and it's calculating it there. Again, for the refunds, from the refund sheet. And then I have a tab for tax and national insurance, and at some point I will sit and create a sheet that will throughout the month calculate my tax and my income, kind of estimate, because I'm registered as a sole trader, so I will have to do my tax return at the end of each financial year, which is in April in the UK, and so when you are a sole trader or self-employed, rather than tax and national insurance coming out monthly as it does when you're full-time employed through the PAYE system, you basically get a tax bill after you've submitted your tax return in April, and then that tells you how much tax and national insurance you have to pay, and then you've got, I think it's like a month or something, or maybe a couple of months to pay that bill. So I will do another video when I have made those sheets that calculate the tax and national insurance, and that will just tell me at the end of each month roughly how much I would have to pay, which is good, because it means that if you have savings or if you've made money and you're going to have to pay tax and national insurance, you can have a separate account and you can put aside that little chunk that it tells you that it's estimated each month, and then fingers crossed if all my calculations are correct when I do it, worst case scenario, you'll have more money put aside for your tax or national insurance, rather than waiting until April and then trying to see if you've got enough money. It's better to put it away each month. Then this sort of section feeds over to here, so gross profit. Now, gross profit is a tricky one. If you're just a florist, it's really easy because you're buying your stock in per stem, a price per stem, and you're just making bouquets, and so you can work out your costings per bouquet, and your gross profit is basically how much you charge for that product minus how much that product cost you. When you're a flower farmer, it's a little bit more tricky because you're growing the flowers, and it's not just the cost of the bulb or the seed. You've got manure, you've got water, you've got other overheads, but then you're getting more into the realms of net profit. So the way that I have decided to calculate my gross profit is obviously my final product, which are my bouquets or my flowers, minus my total farm expenditures, because that's the way I see it, is that the things that I buy for the farm, which when I go through the sheet and we'll look at all the things, it's like any machinery, any compost or manure, seed trays, any bulbs, any seeds, all of that does factor in to the costings of growing the flowers. Now, I could be far more in depth and really look into wholesale prices and then how much it's costing me to basically grow on a certain square meterage of my land, and it's I have looked at other options for calculating my gross profit, and I've decided this is the simplest way to go about it. However much I'm charging for the product minus however much it cost me on the farm. So that's it. So where it gets a bit complicated then is if someone asks me, it's easy to say you're selling pens, it's easy to say your gross profit on one pen is, because you know exactly how much you're selling each individual pen for, and they're probably all going to be roughly the same price, and then how much all of those materials cost to make that pen, and that's probably going to be the same price, so you can have a gross profit per product. It doesn't quite work like that with a flower farm. So for me, my gross profit is just going to have to be a total gross profit rather than per product, because it becomes too subjective then. And then moving on, net profit. So your net profit is very simple. It's literally your total profit minus all of your expenditures, and that's it. So that's how you work out your net profit. Then down here, this is more about business capital. So this is any loans or savings that you have for the business. So that's any money that you've put aside for the business or you've got specifically for it. Stock, because stock counts as capital. I'll point out here, because some people may be wondering, obviously things like anything that the business owns technically is capital, but that comes more into like the business worth rather than this is just for accounts and financing. So yes, if the business owns machinery or the business owns a piece of land, that is capital, it's owned by the business, but that goes into the business overall worth, if that makes sense, rather than the finances, because the finances are kind of just, I'm keeping it just as like my income and my outgoings. Then any creditors. So the reason that I've got this separate to loans and savings is this is creditors that you have to pay. So I'll probably clear that up a little bit more. So these are your pluses. This is money coming in and this is money going out. Basically your business capital is this minus any repayments that you have to be making. And then down here I got business capital plus net profit. Now obviously if you're making profit, then that shows you how much the business has made, and then along with how much money is sitting in the account each month. And then obviously the following month that would change, because any profit I would put into, it's either going to get invested back into the business and it will be on your expenditures, or it's going to be chucked into the savings tab here. So I could even have loans, savings and investments in there, or investments as a separate tab. Obviously when I go through my expenditures and I'll explain everything, it's a bit different if it's in the minus when it comes to profit, because obviously the business capital minus the profit doesn't quite make it into the plus numbers. So obviously that's not a real number. There is no minus, 3,293 anywhere. It's just showing that obviously there isn't enough between the business capital and the net profit to get it into plus figures as yet. Now let's go back to expenditures and have a look at what it costs to start a flower farm. So I'm going to start down the shortest end of my expenditures, and that is in miscellaneous. Now I haven't got any receipt numbers because these aren't actually any accounts that I'm going to use. I'm just using this as a record. I didn't start selling anything, obviously, because I had to wait until I had my land and everything away from the allotment. So I didn't start selling anything until December last year, and that's when I registered for tax, was December last year. So my first accounts will be December accounts, and then at the end of this month I'll have January accounts. So actually all of these things, this is just for my reference, as in these were before expenditures, before I started selling. So this is kind of me looking at how much did it cost me to get to the point of setting up to sell. So miscellaneous, one book, and that was for journal keeping. Yeah, that didn't really stick, but it wasn't a huge cost. And then we flip over to energy and internet expenses. So this can be anything from your water bill, because at the end of the day, anything, even so, say you have internet, I could even put my monthly internet bill on here if I want, because even if you use your internet for something else, if you use internet and a large portion of your business is online, you can claim your internet bill back as an expense. So say you have a flower farm and you use a lot of water to water your flower farm, you can put your water bill down as a taxable expense. So for now, on here I have iCloud storage, and I've included that because I put a lot of my graphics and so my graphics for the website and my images for the website on an iCloud storage. I have my domain name payments. So when I registered my domain name, and I pay that yearly. So I pay £14 per domain name yearly. So then we have Wix, and that's for my website. So that's for the premium account. When I initially started it, I started it as a website, and so that was I was paying £14 per month. To have it as an e-com site to be able to sell is £22 a month. That's quite a large expenditure, so that's something that I need to watch going out. Then we go to packaging expenses. Now for packaging, some people might include in here their stuff for wrapping bouquets, etc. They might decide that comes in as a packaging expense. I'm not, so I'm keeping packaging strictly as the amount that it costs me to package up a product and post it. Or if I'm, say, at a market and I'm having to, give people bags to put things in. So that is how I'm looking at packaging and postage. So it's nothing to do with the actual product. So postage for a wreath, and then a few other bits and bobs there. Admin expenses. So I say admin, you could call it something else. As you can see here, it is mostly like ribbon and rope and some flower food and different wrapping things, but I've called it admin because in there I'll also include any sort of paper for printing things out, say if I need to print invoices out and bits and bobs like that. So that's what I'm including in admin. Now this is the big one, and this is where we really come into kind of how much does it cost to start up a flower farm. I will go through each of these expenditures one by one, and then kind of talk about the setup costs in general. So to start with, wood, and that's an estimated cost because I bought a load of wood that I used on my allotment, and then some of it I have used and repurposed in my in the flower farm. It's an estimate looking at what I actually spent on wood and how much I've repurposed. I might repurpose more. And then that's kind of a personal one. You might not use any wood on your flower farm, so that's kind of, you know, it's one of those. Here I've just put tree, that's basically, I bought a eucalyptus tree and I bought a corkscrew hazel tree. Strimmer, again, I actually originally bought that for the allotment, but I am going to be using it on my flower farm. So, but you know, that's the way I'm looking at it, is great if you had a strimmer before that was just yours and you didn't buy it for anything specific. You could kind of, you don't have to put that down as an expenditure. The way I look at it is if I hadn't bought it for my allotment, I would have to have bought it, so that's why I've included it as an expenditure. Soil test, shredder, my shed. So this isn't round the flower farm yet, but it will be going round. I'll touch on it in my next update video about what I'm doing shed wise, but I have got a shed that I purchased brand new. So seeds, so these are all my varying seed orders, and this everything that's here, I haven't even included any of my past year seeds. Everything here was purchased last year and this month, and they're all for this year, the 2023 growing season. And it's a lot. I mean, when you look at it, that's a huge chunk of money, and that is something that you know, unless I get really into seed saving, that's going to be a yearly expenditure. Some seed trays, my saw, and that's my electric saw, rubbish bags, root trainers, quite a few ranunculus, quite a bit on perennials. We have some peonies. I have paraffin. I don't use a paraffin heater all winter to heat a greenhouse. I just use it say if it drops below -3, I put it on low just to kind of make sure that the frost doesn't penetrate the greenhouse and really kill anything off. Then I have some manure, lily bulbs, heater wicks, handsaw, grow lights, ground pegs, some gladioli bulbs, and 2 big expenditures there, and that is my fence, the costings for putting up my fence to fence off my land. As you can see, quite a lot of money on dahlias, a good bit on daffodils, compost. Again, it's an estimate because I bought a huge load of compost, and I've used some of it on my allotment and some of it will be used on my flower farm. Also, I'll recycle some compost from my allotment onto the flower farm. So that's kind of an estimate of overall the amount of compost that I have bought to start this up, and that's also compost for potting things on and starting seedlings as well. Compost bins, that's compost that I bought this month, so I know the cost of it. Chrysanthemums and buckets. Now, this list isn't actually exhaustive because I have received a lot of things as gifts. So, I've received some bulbs as gifts, I've received perennials as gift, all my irises, they were all gifted to me, so they aren't on there. So my total farm expenditures is, for starting up the flower farm, is coming in at about £3,227. I would say if I had to buy everything that had been gifted to me, it would be closer to probably £3,800. And if we go to the total accounts, the total expenditures is £3,378. Now, again, if I included the things that have been gifted, plus if I included things like my internet bill, my phone bill, other expenditures, such as that, you could look at it as roughly £4,000. So, what's the quick answer for how much does it cost to set up a flower farm? And the quick answer, looking at this, is roughly about £4,000. And so the long answer is there is no real answer to the question of how much does it cost to start a flower farm, because it all depends on your personal circumstances, and also your expectations as well. You know, a pack of seeds is going to cost you far less than 10 different dahlia tubers. So you kind of, it can be cheap, it can be a really cheap thing to get the ball rolling and to start up, but then it can also be a really expensive thing. You kind of have to look at your own personal circumstances and how much you have to put into it, and your expectations from what you're going to get out of it. So your expectations are to grow a lot of annual seeds and to keep your costs really low. But if your expectations are to have peonies and dahlias and gladioli and all of that, the costs add up. They really do. And the thing is, it's the part of flower farming that people don't always explain. The amount of crop failures, dahlia tubers lost, gladioli bulbs lost, all the things that I've experienced. I mean, peony wise, I've lost loads of peonies. They've not done well at all, and that's cost, that's money, down the toilet, and then you have to either rebuy the things that you've lost or go without. And that's the thing. So when it comes to it, how much does it cost to start up a flower farm? It's going to be personal. It's going to be completely personal. My total is based on my piece of land, which is 31 meters by 8.5 meters, and that's on my expectations of, I want to have a lot of perennials and a lot of bulbs and a lot of shrubs and a lot of hardwood plants, etc., and then some annuals as well. So that's kind of my expectations, and my piece of land is a nightmare. You know what I mean? So to be really transparent, on top of those expenses, I've gone and bought another £80 worth of weed suppressant, and I'll probably end up buying another £80 worth of weed suppressant, just because I've realised it's going to be the best option that I have for covering the ground, because there's just there's too much glass and things for me to sift through. So yeah, those are my expenses. The truth is, your expenses are going to be completely different. I mean, if you've got like triple the amount of land, then you're going to be tripling those costs. But it's the same with, so say you've got a large piece of land and you're thinking, okay, well then I'll just do annuals. Look at my total for seeds was quite a lot, and that's 1 year's total. I think I'll work it out about £80-90 in total. If you then have 4 times the amount of land, then chances are you're going to have 4 times the amount that you're having to invest in seeds. Yes, some seed packets will have a lot of seeds and they don't use them all, but some seed packets you probably have to buy 10 times the amount to be able to fill a space that's just 4 times larger than what I have. So I would say the best advice for working out how much it will cost to start a flower farm. Look at your land, look at what you're going to have to do to get it ready for growing, and then look at the general sort of cost of things and just sit and work out an estimate. Look at your equipment, look at, you know, are there trees you're going to have to cut down? Are you going to have to invest in an electric saw or a petrol saw or even just hand saw? Are you going to have to invest in a strimmer? Are you going to have to invest in compost? Are you going to have to invest in manure? So you can, those costs are at the, you know, at your fingertips. You can Google them and find out how much those things are. So just sit and work that out for your space, and that will give you your sort of start-up costs. Because the truth is, you can watch 100 videos from 100 different flower farms talking about how much it cost them to set up their flower farm and how much profit they made and all their revenue streams. Yours is not going to be the same. It isn't. It's, you know, that is the nature of agriculture and horticulture. You're not going to be able to emulate what someone else has unless you have exactly that. You have an identical piece of land with identical weather and you have an identical amount of money to put in, then it's, you know, you can't really go by what other people are saying that it's cost them, etc. This is just for you to have an oversight of how much it's cost me so far. And then this will be the first year that I'll be calculating my profit as well, so I will share that. But again, like, don't take it as like, oh, that's what my business is going to make kind of thing, because everyone's going to be different. Everyone's in different areas, got different customers, everything. You have to do your own market research for things like that and try and work out how much you know you can expect to make profit wise from your outlets, etc. So yeah, the best thing I can suggest is to keep your accounts. You saw my website expenses. At the moment, I don't have much for sale. I've got a couple of dried reefs, so I have actually changed my package back to the basics, so I'm now paying half the amount this month, at the end of this month, for my website, with the basic package where nobody can buy anything off of the site because I haven't really got anything to sell. So it's like, so I'm saving myself money on my website costs, because that's not a route to market at the moment, because I don't have enough stock. And then hopefully come the spring, when I've got spring bouquets, etc., I'll change my package again. I'll pay more on my website, and I will stock things on the website. And if I get enough revenue from the website to justify the cost for having that premium account, then I'll keep it. If not, then I will probably cut that as a sort of revenue stream and look at other online venues where it is cheaper. And that's and you have to do that balancing act. And that's why it's important to not just like do a generalized overview of your expenses or a generalized overview of your income. Break it down, really sit at points and analyze your data and work out where you need to invest money, where you don't need to invest money, and where you need to keep your costs down. Are there certain plants that you're buying over and over and over again because they're not surviving, you know, and that could be down to your location, it could be down to you just don't have time to give them the sort of care and attention. You know, analyze your data. Where are you losing money? Where are you earning money? And really put your finances where it matters, rather than just, I think, you know, especially I do it all the time, you know, and I have dyslexia and dyspraxia as well, so it's easy for me to get distracted and be like, all of the peonies, you know, and I sit and I save like 10,000 different rose varieties that I want to buy, even though I'm awful at growing roses. So you know, it's easy, especially in flower farming, to get into the sort of flower and plant frenzy and forget that every cost, everything that goes out has to come back in, it has to be covered. Otherwise you'll sit at the end of your first few years and you'll be like, I've made no money and I've spent a ton of money. Or you could be like, oh my gosh, I've spent like £500 on roses, and I've, you know, throughout the last 2 years, and I've not managed to keep hardly any of them alive, and that's just a waste of money, you know. So just analyse where you're spending money out, and is it worth it? So for me, I'm going to do a video on it, and it's a big decision that I've made regards dahlias. You probably saw that was a really big reoccurring expense for me, and I had to sit and kind of take stock, and especially this year it's been awful with dahlias, but I'll go through it all in the other video. And basically yeah, it's something that I've had to sit and analyse and really sort of assess what's gone on, how have I spent so much on dahlia tubers, and was it worth it? Is it going to make me a profit? But yeah, I'll do a video on that, and that will kind of, it will be a really good sort of follow on from this to kind of show how I've taken all the boring spreadsheet and data and financial side of things and related it back into the real life flower farm decisions, and how the two impact each other, the financial side and the farming side, and how they have to work together and correlate for it to be a business, basically. Yeah, anyway, thanks for watching me ramble and look at lovely boring spreadsheets for however long. I hope it was a little bit helpful to at least some people. I have a bit of a weird way of explaining things sometimes. It's easier for me to sit and do the spreadsheets and input data than it is to explain exactly what I've done. So I hope it made at least a little bit of sense. And yeah, I will see you in the next video, and thank you for watching.